Brothers and sisters, I welcome you back to our broadcast this evening. I would like to share with you a tale, not from one of the scriptures, or even revelations delivered unto the faithful by our God. No, this evening I will be speaking to you about a village called Tir Brendegedig. Right now, after hearing those words out loud, agents of the Pharisees will be greatly concerned, so I shall get to the point quickly, lest they make efforts to silence me. Tir Brendegedig does not appear on any maps, but this was not always the case. In North Wales, a short distance northwest of Pwllglas, 2,000 people lived, worked, and prospered, such as their circumstances permitted. On the 2nd of November, their lives changed forever. Tir Brendegedig, I am told, means blessed ground. It is anything but blessed. Their deep spaces infected with the taint of some Yaza and their allies. And on the 2nd of November, 1982, their proximity to that accursed being brought them to their fate. I am sure many of the village folk were innocent or even ignorant. How can a mere mortal know when you are in the presence of a corrupted God? How indeed? Let me ask you this. As a child, did you ever meet another young person, or an adult, and you simply knew in your bones that they were a bad person? It is the same thing. Your higher self knew you were in the presence of something wicked. These people ignored that warning. That warning we are all born with. All save one.
Everyone I know from back home is either dead or maybe something worse. And it could have been the same for me, had I not been blessed by our God while I was working away. I truly believe that it was this holy armour which saved me when so many others were changed. Nearly everyone in town had been sent these boxes to attach to the telly. We're all told to get 500 quid just to sit down and watch the new Channel 4 launch. Thing is, we didn't think we could get signal out here. Some nearby parishes only recently got plugged into the electricity grid, and some of the smaller ones still aren't. So a new television channel seemed like it was off the cards for us. But they said that this was an important test to see if it all worked properly, so could they get everybody hooked up. Said that the money that we were being paid was representative of the value that you could bring through participation. But I knew it for what it was. I knew it was dodgy. But no one in the village was in a position to say no to that kind of money. And it might not seem a lot to some folk, but it was to us. When the scheme told us to turn our boxes, we did. And that's when it started to go wrong. The programme was weird. It was just a jumble of nonsense. Like, it wasn't grainy or broken up. Not and it made sense. I didn't get what the point was. It was like a strange mix. Some people dancing, animals, like they'd taken years worth of TV and put it in a blender. I remember I tried to make a joke about it with my dad, but he was just sat there, rigid. His eyes were like saucers, and his mouth, oh God, it was wide open, like he was screaming. But even then, his expression seemed somehow awestruck. I can't explain it, but you just have to see it. My mum was the same, and even my niece who we were looking after for the night. A baby's not meant to be that still. They're not meant to look like that. I think that's the thing that haunts me the most. That's when it started, the screaming. At first, I thought it was my dad, but it was coming from outside. Someone were howling, a real throat-ripping animal yell. I poked my head through the curtains just to see someone running full pelt down the road, just away from our place. I couldn't see you though. And when I turned back, all my family was stood up, walking towards the door. I asked them where they were going, but nobody answered. So I followed them to the hallway and I tapped my dad on the shoulder, just to ask what was going on. My mum and dad aren't ones to go anywhere once they're settled, especially when it's cold as it was. And he didn't say a word. He just spun and backhanded me. And I was shocked. My father was a very gentle man, and he'd never so much as raised his voice to me. Him looking disappointed was enough to get you stopped misbehaving. As shocked as I was, I didn't really have time to think because the house was rocked by a massive bang. And by the time I got my wits together, they were out the door. And I could see that yellow and orange flicker from a fire reflecting off the house opposite windows. And the rest, well, the rest is a bit of a blur. But by the time I got my wits together and gone outside, it was like the end of the world. Some people were marching down the road, my parents included. Others are sprinting and screaming. Every now and then they'd set on one of the others and just start pounding their life out of them. And if it was one of the screamers, they'd fight back savagely. And if it was one of the others, they'd just lie there and take it silently. Cars and houses were ablaze. It was a nightmare. And that's when I remembered my niece. I ran back in there and I could see her, thrashing on the couch where my mum had just left her. A tiny face covered in the kind of mad fury that you only see in films. And I wrapped her so tight in her soul. She fought me the whole way. And my God, was she strong. I grabbed a nappy bag and I just sprinted for the car. People pelted us with stones and all sorts as I drove us out there. I took the Land Rover, just through the fields. I just didn't want them to break the window with the baby in the car. And I was lucky I did as I got up the hill. I looked back on the town and I could see the police blocking the west part of the road out. And I just knew right then that they were in on it as well. It's nearly 20 miles to the nearest police station, and they could have gotten one, maybe two cars at most. But there was a lot more than that down there, and it had been minutes, just minutes since this had all kicked off, and there's no way that somebody could have called for help, and they had just arrived. So I kept off my lights, and I stuck to the fields. I reckon if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be here today. I found refuge with the other devotees of God, and through their ministries, my niece was relieved of her suffering. I am eternally grateful for their mercy and their resolve.
Brothers and sisters, did you hear what this brave young soul had to say? Didn't you imagine the horror? This is not a tale from Hindustan or Siam. It is not Rhodesia or Uganda. This happened here, in Britain. And yet, not a single newspaper report, not a single mention on BBC News. Reams and reams of fluff about the royals, or some new it girl, or other such bollocks. But a village is sacrificed in some mad experiment, and not a word. Don't take our word for it. Take a look at your old AA road maps, or Ordnance Survey charts. See for yourself where a town called Tir Pendigedig once stood. Then put on your hiking boots and see for yourself. Witness the miles and miles of electrified fences. See the lying signs warning of mine shafts of subsidence. Look past their lies and know the truth. The government is in league with some Yazendeuk. Reject them. Our God is the only way. And soon you shall all come to know our God's loving embrace. It is inevitable, because our God is undeniable.